Hello YouTube, Matt Guy here again. Just a little bit ago I took apart the Swiss K31 and I decided, well, I think it would be cool to pretty much talk about the K31. It's a wonderful rifle. I have one of them. It's the this one in particular was made in 1942. As you can see here, it has a walnut stock. The K31 entered service in 1931, and it lasted in service until it was a standard issue until 1958. So it had some pretty good longevity, 27 years. It is an amazingly accurate rifle. It has the accuracy of being able to group on a 1-inch radius circle at 100 yards. And at 200 yards, it's 2 inches. So 1 arc minute per 100 yards. It's amazingly accurate. The action of this rifle is actually pretty unique in that most bolt-action rifles that people are familiar with, for example, the K98 Mauser and all the millions of copies that have been made of the K98 Mauser. If you've ever seen, for example, Saving Private Ryan, when the Germans are shooting at the Americans, you see them pull the bolt lever up, and then they pull it back, and then they slide it forward, and then they lock it back into place. So it's up, forward, back, down. The K31 is not like that. And as a matter of fact, instead of 4 actions, they brought it down to 2. It is quite simply back, forward. That's it. It allows the soldier to reduce the amount of time it takes to unchamber the spent cartridge and put a new cartridge in. It allows them to keep their head down. The K98 Mauser, when they did that, the soldier sometimes had to lift up their head. Not so with the K31. They can actually just pull it back. There's enough clearance between the what's called the cocking piece and where you're supposed to put your head, back towards the to the rear stock. So it allows them to keep their heads down, which, you know, in a battle, that's pretty darn important. The sights are very crisp. The front sight, even though it's considered a carbine, it's actually, in my opinion, a full-length rifle. But for back then, that was considered a carbine. Anything less than, 8 feet long was a carbine. The front sight is a beautifully crisp sight that is very easy to see. The rear sight is a graduated rear sight that goes up to 1,500 meters. Let's see, what else can I tell you about this? One very cool thing about these K31s, if you collect them, if you take off the metal butt plate on the rear stock, just take a screwdriver. It's a little flathead screwdriver. Take off that butt plate, and occasionally you may find this little plasticized piece of paper with a soldier's name, rank, what unit they were with, what they did, where they lived, just about everything on this piece of paper about the soldier. And some people have actually written letters to the address, addressing straight to the soldier himself, and they received a reply from that soldier. One such friend of mine actually did that, and he did get a reply. Another unique thing about these K31s was that in Switzerland they don't have an armory like we do here in the United States or in other countries like Britain and whatnot. Instead, what they would do is when when the men turned 18, they had to go off to training, and it was mandatory. And once they were done with their training, they took this rifle home, and they kept it with them. And they were required to maintain it, clean it, keep it free of any defects. It was their responsibility. And then periodically, the soldiers would meet and conduct their drills, do their trainings, do their marksmanship to brush up on their skills. And if I remember right, I think it's when they turned 42. That's when they were done. So military service was mandatory for the Swiss. So that's why you will also find a lot of these K31s in very, very poor shape, because these were not. You didn't have a sergeant always looking over your shoulder when you had this rifle. Um, the rear stock of these rifles are usually notoriously beat up, which I think adds to the character of these rifles. They would and they actually have it in the manual. Please do not use this to drive tent stakes. These were country boys, many of which who had never fired a firearm in their lives, or at least not a military firearm, and they didn't know. So yeah, they would take this nice heavy butt end of the rifle and just drive tent stakes with them. They would kick them with their cleated boots out of the snow. They would just put them all together in the snow. They just lock them all together right here and form a nice little tripod, and they just leave them in the snow. And when they were ready to move out, they would just kick them free and then pull them out of the snow, which is also why a lot of times the buttstock is very discolored, such as mine is here. A lot of nicks, a lot of scratches, a lot of scars, but I think that's actually pretty cool. And I won't get this refinished. I refuse. The K31 does shoot a 7.5 by 55 millimeter cartridge, which kicks like a mule. Ballistically, it is very similar to the 308. Unfortunately, it is Berdan primed. It is not Boxer primed. If you get the Swiss surplus ammo, it is not Boxer primed, which makes it very difficult to reload. Some people can do it. It just takes more doing. But it does kick like a mule. The weight of the rifle is, in my opinion, it's just not enough. The first time I took this out, I only fired 22 shots. I couldn't lift my arm the next day. And another buddy of mine, he only fired 18 shots, and he's been shooting rifles all of his life. He had the same problem. This metal butt plate and this rear stock, they're not very forgiving. I wear a recoil pad on my shoulder. I also have a bad shoulder from other things, but this shoulder is bad, so I put a recoil pad on there, and when I do that, that actually compensates quite a bit. It doesn't hurt nearly as much when I put that pad on and shoot this rifle. I can shoot it all day. But yeah, I absolutely love this rifle. I won't give it up. I won't sell it. I mean, it's 67 years old, and it still fires like a dream. The bore is bright and shiny. I love it. As far as some people may ask, well, what about putting a scope on it? There are ways of doing it. However, because of the unique action, the straight pull bolt action, putting a scope mount on here is a little bit pricey. It can be done. I believe Brownells actually carries a scope for about $50. Or I'm sorry, the scope mount for about $50, and then you can mount your scope on it. They start at $50 and they work their way up to about 100, 150, depending on where you get it from. If you do get a scope, if your rifle has one of these, this is a cover for the muzzle of the rifle. I'm just going to nudge it here, pop it off. If you fire it without a scope, you will learn very quickly whether or not this is still on the muzzle. You just won't be able to see the front sight at all, because this piece here, covers the sight. However, if you have a scope, you're not using that front sight. I've heard of people firing their rifles and sending this thing flying, and actually, in some cases, damaging the muzzle of the rifle. So be very, very conscientious of whether or not you have that on the muzzle. It was just FYI. This was basically meant to keep the barrel clean of any snow, of any dirt. It's just a wonderful, cheap idea, at least cheap for them. However, they don't make these anymore, so if you do shoot one of them off and you don't blow the end of the muzzle off, you're going to be spending at least $10, sometimes $15, sometimes $25. Depends on how much they ask for that piece. But Just be very careful with it. If you fire it with the open sights, you'll discover very quickly, oh yeah, I left it on. So anyway, I love this rifle. If you ever get a chance to shoot one, I definitely recommend it. I think that about covers it. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.